Living in a time where consumption is such an incredible impulse now to consume. So this idea that happiness, real liberation, can come by giving up. I think if Jesus was here today, I think it'd be quite terrifying. If he turned the tables back in those days, I wonder what he would do to the banks today. It's called the Quran, which means the recital. And so it comes out of an oral culture. And because of that, it has orality, is still part of it. And one of the interesting things about oral people is that oral people, stories are very important to them. And the Quran says, we are telling you the best stories. One of the things that you'll notice in the Quran is that many of the same characters that we find in the Bible, Zechariah is there, Ilyas is there, Solomon is there, David is there, Pharaoh's there, John the Baptist is there. But you'll find nuanced versions of these stories that sometimes differ from the biblical narrative. And the angel says, well, God does what he wants. He just says, be, and it is. Jesus is born without a father, and he's born speaking. So basically, it's saying, I can do whatever I want. We have more sayings in the Islamic tradition about Jesus than you'll find in the Gospels themselves. So there is a possibility that other things did happen. It's so radically the Christian view that I think it really bothers a lot of Christians. Just the idea that, hey, this is our Jesus. In the Christian narrative, the most central and fundamental point of Christianity is the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Well, Islam basically denies that. There are two versions in the Islamic tradition about it appeared to them. Some of them say that there was a replacement for Christ on the cross. The other opinion is appearance in reality. You thought something happened, it didn't happen in reality, and it really leaves it at that. The essence of Islam is submission to the absolute, to the divine, and that's where salvation lies, in submission to the divine, or at least a recognition of the divine. In Christianity, salvation lies through the acceptance of the blood of the Lamb. That is a completely different narrative than the Quran is giving. Who's right? Well, the Quran says, you make your choice here, and I'm going to let you know in the next world. The Quran says that the heavens were almost rent asunder, that the mountains were almost obliterated, that the earth almost shook at the idea that we would say that God had a son.
In the Quran it says that on the Day of Judgment, God will actually ask Jesus Christ,
did you tell the people that you were God?
And Jesus says, I would never say that. Glory to you, transcendent are you. I would never say that. I have no right to say that. Now, if you look at the word Dajjal, which means Antichrist in Arabic, the root word is to put pitch or tar over a mangy camel. And what happens when you do that is the mange goes away. It suppresses it, like putting cortisone on eczema. And then you sell the camel because it looks good. And so the person buys it thinking it's a healthy camel, and then a week later, the mange reemerges. He's the pitch man. He's the one who's like pitching you this, buy this product, the 7 deadly sins, lust, greed, pride, gluttony, right? You're really gonna enjoy these. You're gonna have a good time. Christ says, go and sin no more. You're forgiven. The Antichrist says, there's no sins to forgive. Go do whatever you want. The basic scenario that's given is the world becomes filled with an immense amount of oppression and injustice, and Christ returns in an eastern part of Damascus. One of the things that I love about Islam, I really love this, is that God has set up all of these meta-narratives. Like the Christians have their version of reality, the Jews have their version of reality, the Buddhists have their version of reality, the Muslims have their version of reality, the secularists, atheists have their version of reality. And all of these are talked about in the Quran, all these different realities. And then the Quran says, you better think about these. Think deeply about these. Don't just assume that these are correct. You have to think, you have to use your brain. The Prophet Muhammad's most important concern in engaging people that were hostile to him was how I can turn this enemy into a friend. And that only comes from love. That comes from a concern. And I think the centrality of love in the Christian tradition is a very beautiful quality. And it's something that many Muslims have forgotten about their own faith. And I think there's an immense amount that Muslims can learn from Jesus. I also think there's an immense amount that Christians can learn from Muhammad.